Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Swift Print Providence version. As you can see, I am in the Lover House. I'm Sean Richardson, and I serve as the Assistant Director of Alumni Relations with attention to affinity programs. And once a semester, we like to do virtual programming. So if you go to our website, you can find our other virtual programs we have done in the past, such as a lecture on the legacy of Juneteenth and a panel on artificial intelligence. So once again, thank you for joining us. It is my pleasure to introduce Crystal Bozigian to you all. Crystal received her Bachelor's of Arts in History and Secondary Education from Providence College in 2007. She is a high school history department chair and a teacher at North Providence High School in North Providence, Rhode Island, where she teaches American history and a pop culture elective named Hollywood History. Crystal is a pop culture enthusiast who received her first master's degree in American media and popular culture from Arizona State University's English and Film Department in 2015. Crystal later returned to Providence College to pursue a master's in education in school leadership, graduating in 2022. Crystal loves movies, television, and music, spending free time and lots of money on concerts and travel. With a little bit of luck, Crystal attended the Eras Tour at Gillette Stadium in May of 2023 and is now entering her PC alum moderator era as a self-proclaimed Swiftie. So let's welcome Crystal and let's get started.
Thank you, Sean. Hi, everyone. Thank you for that excellent introduction. I'm so excited to be here. I was asked to be a part of this way back in the spring when ideas were just snowballing and bouncing off one another in terms of how we could put a program together that best fit not only what was going on at PC, but how we could bring it to our alumni as well. I am, again, so excited to be here this evening because I think what we best get from our PC professors who are going to be speaking in just a few moments. But the idea that we need to find relevance in everything that we teach. And so as a high school teacher, I'm constantly reminded of trying to relate or relating to my students in ways that is through popular culture, through movies, through music. And whether we like it or not, this Taylor Swift effect has certainly swept over the globe in the past year and a half of her Eras Tour. And it's exciting to see that Providence College has embraced this and again is continuing to make academics at a liberal arts college so relevant with this pop culture queen that is out there right now. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first professor who is going to be taking us through his course and what he is using in terms of Taylor Swift in his economics course. So Dr. James Bailey will be our first presenter this evening. James Bailey is an associate professor of economics at Providence College. He has taught at PC since 2017 when he moved from Creighton University. He received his PhD in economics from Temple University in 2014 and his Bachelor of Science in Economics from the University of Tulsa in 2009. He has published more than 30 articles in academic journals with a focus on health, labor, and regulatory economics and writes every Thursday at economistwritingeveryday.com. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Dr. James Bailey. And just before I do that, anyone who is in attendance this evening, if you have any questions throughout the program, feel free to use the Q&A feature. And we will be conducting a Q&A at the end of this chat, but as questions arise throughout the three presentations this evening, be sure to capture those in the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. And when Sean reached out with the invitation for this program, I was really excited because I thought it was the big breakout opportunity for my all-professor Taylor Swift cover band, Tortured Prose department. But then he let me know we'd actually just like you to stick to the economics. So I guess I'll do that. I am kidding. I'm actually not probably a big Swiftie by the standards of people here, but I do have a fair amount to say on the economic side. And here we go. Try to keep this to 15 minutes or less, which was a challenge once I started realizing just how much there is here. So I'll start with what you might expect from The Economist, which is just following the money, of which there is a lot. So Taylor Swift has been called the first purely musical billionaire. There are a couple other musicians who are billionaires, but in each case, like with Jay-Z, they made a large proportion of their money from things other than the music. They made investments in, music companies like Tidal or just other companies like Uber. Taylor Swift appears to be the first to hit billionaire status, really just from touring and recording music. And part of that is counting the future value of her song catalog, right? If you actually just look at the cash and the real assets, it might be more like $500 million. But she'll get there pretty soon, I'm sure, just in cash. 6 homes, including the one in Rhode Island, and so on. Right? So when we think about what's the economic impact of Taylor Swift, you could look at how much money she's been able to accumulate, which is the $1 billion. You could look at how much money people are spending, which is definitely more than that, right? Because a lot of the money goes to the record companies. It goes to everybody else who's involved in putting the tours together. So the 2024, the Eras tour, even before 2024, it was already the highest grossing tour of all time. With music, a lot of the details of the money are hidden behind private contracts and so on. So we don't know what exactly she gets to keep from that, but it might be on the order of half. Anyway, the impact of a tour is going to go well beyond the ticket prices that people are paying, much of which goes to Swift. People might spend 2 to 4 times as much on hotels, merchandise, and travel, and so on. When we think about the economic impact, people sort of inflate this sometimes with really big multipliers. Often, in the true economic impact might just be more like 2x what people are directly spending. But in this case, that's still a really big number. To me, the bigger impact is actually on what people are not spending or not having to spend. Because when you think about the value of Taylor Swift's music, it's probably going to be a lot bigger than the amount people are actually spending on it. In general, anytime you're buying something, the value you get from it, I would hope, is going to be bigger than what you spend, because otherwise, why would you spend it? You'd be making a mistake if you paid more for something than you thought it was worth, right? And so that difference between what the value that people get and what they actually have to spend, our jargon term is consumer surplus. But the point is, people can get a lot of enjoyment. You may pay $20 for an album or $200 for a ticket that you would have been willing to pay much more for, and you get much more enjoyment than that for. And that can be true with any good, but I think it's particularly true with music, where so much of it is consumed without having to spend any money. And I think it's particularly true for somebody like Taylor Swift, who's creating so many new songs that didn't exist before. When we think about valuing innovation in general, valuing things that are totally new to the world, economist William Nordhaus has estimated that innovators and inventors, they typically only capture about 2% of the value of their inventions, right? Just think about something like the light bulb, where maybe it's invented or perfected by Thomas Edison back in the 1800s. But billions of people since then have been able to use this, and none of us have to pay any money to Thomas Edison anymore, and we get this huge value from being able to enjoy light in our homes right now. And so almost all that value goes to consumers, and most of the rest goes to other producers rather than the original producer. And I think something like this, if something like this is true for Swift, then her true economic impact would be more like $50 billion in terms of value that she's created for the world. Something much larger than the $1 billion she's been able to keep for herself so far. Okay. So last week I was teaching about Taylor Swift to my macroeconomics class, and giving a sort of an early version of this talk, but it is really interesting that Swift has become, like, her tours are so big that they are showing up in all of these places where you wouldn't expect to be hearing about a musician. All these very sort of serious macroeconomic reports, for instance, from the U.S. Federal Reserve, the Beige Book from the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia, where they report on economic activity in their district, noted May was the strongest month for hotel revenue in Philadelphia since the onset of the pandemic, in large part due to an influx of Taylor Swift guests for the Taylor Swift concerts in the city. And a lot of cities have noted that they hit records for hotel occupancy when her concerts come to town. So she's not just getting people to fill hotel rooms that otherwise would have been filled anyway. I think she is sort of expanding the market. In Singapore, her latest tour prompted economists to upgrade their forecast for GDP. Apparently, Singapore was sort of fighting for exclusivity, where they wanted to pay her extra to make sure that their stop was the only stop she made in Southeast Asia, in order to make sure people that fly in to Singapore from all over Southeast Asia, which may have caused geopolitical tensions, according to some of those articles. Another place I was surprised to see Taylor Swift show up is on the prediction market for event contracts called Kalshi. So this is a trading platform that aspires to be like the next Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And for the most part, people like me would be trading on things like, what will the Federal Reserve do with interest rates when they meet later this week, or what's happening to gross domestic product or employment. And yet, at the moment, they have no less than 5 separate markets specifically about Taylor Swift, right? Entirely about Taylor Swift, right? And an additional 4 markets where she is also indirectly involved, for instance, as like one person who might, once again, in her case, be named Times Person of the Year. So this would be a market on how many weeks Tortured Poets Department will be number 1, right? Where it's looking like probably about 15. Here's a market that makes it look like Tortured Poets is a lock for Billboard's Album of the Year. Not looking so good for a new original album this year, which I think would be ambitious, since there's not much time left in the year, and there's already been one. Likewise, we might still have to wait a while for Taylor's re-release of her initial debut album. But she seems likely that, according to these markets, that she'll get around to re-releasing Reputation this year. Okay. So that's sort of the Taylor Swift specific stuff about the numbers. But I also think it's really interesting to think about where she fits into the larger music industry. And in fact, one of the more impressive things about her career is she's done all this at a time where, in a lot of ways, it's been a bad time for the music industry, right? So the peak of revenue for the recorded music industry was in 1999, and we are still not close to being back to the sort of sales we saw in 1999 when CDs were the main format. Of course, in 1999, Napster and other file sharing sites start to take over, and a lot of people realize, maybe instead of buying CDs, I'll just sort of pirate music online. And that leads to many years of falling music revenues. And it's not until the late 2010s that streaming really starts to replace that. And it still hasn't fully replaced it, but recorded music revenue is at least taking off again. What's really taken off is live music sales, live music revenues. And I think this is especially where the musicians get a lot of their money, because they tend to get a bigger cut of the live music sales relative to the recorded music sales, especially in the streaming era. And so the economics of the industry have sort of reversed from where it was 30 years ago. It used to be that people would tour in order to promote their new record, to try to sell you the record. Now it's kind of the other way around, where they're going to be releasing these records largely in order to promote the new tour, try to get people to show up to the tour, where spending on live music is now almost as high as on recorded music. And, the musician probably gets to keep a much bigger share of that. Something like 50 cents on the dollar for the live music compared to maybe 10 or 15 cents on the dollar for the recorded. Okay. This is maybe my favorite part. The economics of superstars, right? So some jobs have this natural limit on how many customers one person who does the job can serve at a given time. So like dentists, no matter how good a dentist is, they still can really only work on one patient at a time. So a superstar dentist, right, if they're really good, maybe they can charge a higher price, maybe they can see like twice as many patients as a regular dentist, but there's kind of this hard limit on how many people they can serve. And so there's this hard limit on how high their income is ever going to be, right? A lot of dentists are well off, but none of them are billionaires from, their dental work, right? Likewise, if you're going to be a chef, who's not like a celebrity chef, but you're just actually making meals, you can only serve so many people that way. So there's this hard limit on how much you can make. Other jobs are not like this, right? One software programmer or one TV actor can sort of serve the whole world, really, because what they do can be reproduced and sort of rebroadcast to everybody. And so which kind of job you're in really affects how much the demand there's going to be for your work, and especially how much the demand there's going to be for you if you're sort of average at your job versus if you're a superstar. Right? So in software, I think nobody cares like what's the best search engine that's been programmed in Providence, Rhode Island, because you can just use the best one in the world, which might have been programmed in Palo Alto, California, or Redmond, Washington. Music used to be more like this first kind of job, and it's kind of changed to being more like the second kind of job, right? Because music, you used to have to physically be in the presence of the musician and close enough to like hear their instruments, and now you don't. About 100 years ago, we figured out like you can record this music and rebroadcast it with phonographs or with the radio. And also even just concerts before amplification, there was a hard limit on how many people could be there, like in the hundreds, maybe the thousands if you're in a building with really good acoustics. But now you can have concerts with many tens of thousands of people with modern amplification. And then you can record and stream this music all over the world. And so one person can be heard by the whole world, like Taylor Swift was sort of being. Right? And so that's created this incredible demand for the superstars, for the very best people in the world, because everybody can hear them and almost everybody sort of wants to hear them. So it's been great for them. And so you see, the top musicians being fabulously wealthy today, much more so than they would have been even in inflation adjusted terms, 100 or 200 years ago. The flip side is it's become much harder to be like a regular middle class musician, right? Because people don't care as much, like who's the best musician in Providence, because again, well, I can just listen to whoever I think is the best musician in the world. All right. So Alfred Marshall, who wrote the first modern principles of economics textbook, invented the supply and demand graph. He noted at the time, he used music as an example back in 1890 of a case where there's not economics of superstars, right? I mean, he thought a musician would never make much more than the best musician of his day, so long as the number of persons who can be reached by a human voice is strictly limited, right? He thought a musician would never make more than about $800,000 in a year. And now Taylor Swift's Eras tour has grossed, like 1,000 times that much. And it's because, well, the number of people who can hear her voice is no longer so limited by technology. So this isn't my idea. It comes from a paper called The Economics of Superstars by Sherwin Rosen. There's also a 2019 book called Rockonomics by Alan Kruger that goes much deeper into all this if you want to try to learn more. One other sort of side thing, I guess I don't have time to get into, but it's pretty interesting, is Taylor Swift's sort of winning a copyright law, realizing that after 2018, her contract allowed her to re-record her albums, where the master's rights to the original albums are owned by the studio, right? But she's able to sort of re-record things. And on all these Taylor's versions albums, the royalties now for the masters go to her in addition to the royalties from the music composition that she was always getting. This is really, the music rights are like weirdly complicated. They get chopped up all these different ways. There's actually a website called Royalty Exchange where you can go buy music rights. I don't think there are any Taylor Swift rights on there, but there are a lot of surprisingly big names. And sometimes you can buy them surprisingly cheaply. You always hear about the catalogs they're getting sold for tens or hundreds of millions of dollars by the superstars. But there are some, cheaper ones available, even from household names. But it's because the rights are always getting chopped up into all these different pieces. So you're buying them maybe just for the public performance rights and not the streaming rights. And maybe it's just for a few songs and so on. All right. Last thing that I had to share. This is so Taylor Swift. Bring it back to college, right? Taylor Swift didn't go to college for music or anything else. And I think that's not because like a music major is a bad idea. I had a student, Sean R. Smith, and he sort of studied the music major and how does it pay, and he found that for musicians, the music major does pay, and musicians who are music majors on average earn a lot more than musicians who were not music majors. But the superstars like Taylor Swift seem to be an exception for this, where their career is already taking off before college time, before basically while they're still in high school, right? And so they don't want to derail that to go to college. But for everybody else, our research and Sean Smith's research seemed to find that the music major is a good idea for the musicians. All right, thank you. I'll stop there.
Great, thank you, Dr. Bailey, which is an excellent transition into our next presenter, Dr. Joanne Thomas. So let me just find, okay. So Dr. Joanne Thomas has over 40 years in music education experience, teaching all levels and all content areas. As a highly skilled instructional leader in the best practices in teaching and learning experience, she is an expert in professional development and curriculum design. She has given many workshops, seminars, and taught courses, on how to improve instruction. Joanne has taught music in Western culture, basic concepts, and popular music alongside music education courses at Providence College. So, Dr. Thomas, take it away.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm going to share my screen in a minute, and I'm going to talk about Taylor's compositional style as we can come and dive in. Now, this could be a whole semester course, so I'm just going to focus on how she writes her lyric, her melodies, and her harmonic structure that makes her so appealing to all of us. So let me share my screen and we'll just dive right in. Taylor likes to compose, as you know, she's a poet first. So she approaches her music from poetry. That's how she does it. And she says the lyrics just come to her and then she has to do something with them. So the melody and the harmony is a slight second. I'm not going to say that her music is simple. It appears simple, but it's not simplistic. So as we dive into her composition right now, keep that in mind, that she is coming from a linguistic standpoint when she's writing her music, unlike somebody like the Beatles, who were pure melody. I remember many times John Lennon would say, just say any word to fit into the melody, and then it would come. But she is definitely coming from the poetic standpoint. She's very focused. We talk about people now who we can't explain their intense inclination to something, like an Elon Musk or a Taylor Swift. But the one thing they do possess is that they want responsibility for the work they do, and they're extremely focused on how they go about doing their work. So we're going to start off with watching her just do a little bit of a song, and just watch how focused she is on making sure that it's absolutely perfect.
Then it won't be.
Oh, I want
like
to go
this
back.
way.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I got to go all the way back. I don't know what happened here. Here we go. All right, now we're ready.
This time. It's more of like writing just kind of happens to me. Like no matter where I am, 4 a.m. or in the middle of a conversation, I'll just get an idea and I'll have to like record it into my cell phone. But I want it to sound kind of like religious. Don't blame me, love, make me crazy. If it doesn't, you ain't doing it right. Lord, save me, my drug is my baby. I'll be using for the rest of my life. Can you sleep at night? Got something that you like?
All right, so you noticed here, she's doing her own recording in the world of AI now, where we do not need to even be in a recording studio. A mark of somebody who wants to be successful is taking that responsibility for their work at all times. She does everything herself. There is no dubbing, looping, or copying my voice, and I don't even have to show up at the recording studio. when she's really on a roll, you'll see those lyrics come out so strong, and she's fighting with herself to try to get a melody and the words to connect. So let's listen to this little famous one, and then we're going to dive into exactly how she goes about getting these melodies together with these beautiful, beautiful lyrics. Watch the focus here.
So key change goes
2, 3, 4.
We would jet set Bonnie and Clyde, oh, till I switch to the other side, like a Dylan-y kind of thing. No surprise I turned you in, oh, 'cause us traitors never win. You were driving the getaway car, we were flying, but we never get far. Don't pretend it's such a mystery. Think about the place where you first met me. Riding in a getaway car, there were sirens and the beat of your heart. Should've known I'd be the first to lead.
You see the
Think
focus
about the
here.
place
She's
where you first
singing
met
and
me.
singing at the same time. She
In
wants
a
this
getaway
melody.
car, no, they never get far. No, nothing good starts in a getaway car. Driving in a getaway car, riding in a getaway car, dying in a getaway car, dying in a getaway car, riding in a getaway car, riding in a getaway car, lying in a getaway car, dying in a getaway car.
That's great.
So fun.
Well, that's not fun. That's work. An extreme focus. Where's this come from? A strong inclination. Some people call it genius. Some people call it prodigy, but she definitely has something. All right. And what does she have? She has the ability to connect real experiences. We can relate to her. It's relevancy and meaning. All right. So now let's dive in to see what is her melodies construct like? What do they look like when she's writing a melody? We know that she's, she comes from the poetry right now. So she's got the words in front of her. How does she create this melody?
After one or two hits. So don't see this as criticizing Swift. I'm merely interpreting data for you to learn something. The first thing I noticed when I listened to 1989 was Swift's abundant use of one-note melodies. These are melodies that stay on one and the same pitch. In other words, the only distinguishing factor between different one-note melodies is rhythm, the pitch that's used, the lyrics, and the sounds. On 1989, there are over 230 of these one-note melodies, not counting repetitions of the choruses. Also, every song uses at least one of them, so I think it's fair to say that it's a pretty big part of Swift's writing style. If you would like to look a little bit deeper into the data, you can download
but this does not mean it's simple. All right. The focus is on the lyric, and then somehow those single notes are driving, and they're driving you to listen to the lyric. All right. She also has a habit of going from that single note up and to what we call in music a skip of a third. All right. And that's very relevant throughout all of her music. All right. So now, as you're listening to some of her songs, listen for those single long passages and see if those are the melodies that kind of stick in your head as we get going. So let's move on and dive a little bit deeper here. This is I love this video because this video shows you how hard she works to get that lyric and the rhythm together, and she's using an awful lot of single notes here, and she finally gets it. So her style of composition comes live. She's almost like an improvisation person. Single note. Third. Here's third. And you love it.
Yeah. Did you record that?
That means he likes it.
All right, it doesn't always end like that. Let's go back a little bit and see how she struggled with that a little bit. All right, at the beginning.
In your eyes, pretend you're mine, and do it all the time. Is it cool that I said all that? 'Cause I said all that. Is it true that you're in my head? Sometimes I wonder if sometimes I wonder when you sleep, are you dreaming of me? Do you ever dream of being with me?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Sometimes
And she's getting frustrated because it's not fitting. The words she wrote is not fitting with how the song is going. You can see that she's in complete control. People that work with her, the producers and the recording guys,
Is it
are
like the first or the-
suggesting, but by no means are they to guide them.
So,
Sometimes I wonder when you sleep
perfect.
if you're ever dreaming of me, or if you ever dream of
Dreaming of me. Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder when you sleep, are you ever dreaming of me?
Yeah.
Sometimes when, 'cause I
And she still doesn't have it.
Just simple.
Huh?
It's just simple.
She spends hours and hours of writing her poetry, but then she still has the pain of going into a recording studio and trying to set it to a melody and a harmony that's also going to blend. But the one thing that I can say about her melody lines is they are very simplistic in nature, with a lot of repeated notes and notes that jump up and notes that jump down. But that works because her poetry is very intense. All right, so it kind of matches with each other. I'm not sure if she was writing intense melodies with intense words that our little old brains can handle at all. All right, so let's go on and take a look to see how she uses her chord progressions. All right, she's very set in how she uses chord progressions. That's the harmony that's going on underneath. Now, most pop music is set up in 1-4-5-1. All right, and we love it because we've been programmed to it. Taylor likes a little bit more than that. But she's also very much into a set system. So if you look here right now, her chording has evolved over time. We want to take a look at these last two because the last three albums, she drastically changed her chording progressions underneath her melodies. This is your basic rock melody underneath here, popular music melody. This is what most people use. But Taylor, she wants to go a different place. So let's dive in and see what she's got.
6-4.
Move up a little bit. Okay.
So the last two chord progressions on this list have been used 20 times and 21 times respectively. I think you'd struggle to find another songwriter who's used a particular chord progression this often. You're probably already making some guesses at what these last two chord progressions are. So let's look at Taylor Swift's second favourite chord progression, which is 1-5-2-4. Or in the key of G major, that would be G, D, A minor, C.
Listen to all the songs that follow it.
Say yes, run away, I'll meet you in your hour of the
for somebody who did not get a college degree, all right, she has picked up an awful lot about how harmony and melody work together. All right, so this is not a simple harmony line like some other of our pop artists use. She wants more. She wants you to feel more. So when we add like a 2 chord here, if you notice this little 2 here, it has dots on it. That's a minor chord. That drives emotion in you. When we have the 4 chord, it's also asking for attention. All right, so her music goes from a happy sound to maybe a little bit smaller, darker sound. Some people say sadder sound, to tension, to release. All right, and that's the formula she uses. She gives you just enough happy, a little bit of sad, a little tension, and then she releases with exquisite poetry. All right, so at this point, you can see that the melody at this point doesn't necessarily have to be that charging, yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away. All right, so let's go and see the number 1 that she uses. Once again, it's highly evolved. I'm going to move this a little bit. There we go.
Swift's list is here. But if you haven't, well, it's the classic 1, 5, 6, 4. Or in the key of C major,
Notice
C,
a minor again.
G, A minor.
Eagles
F.
love this.
'Cause there we are again on that little town street. You almost ran the red 'cause you were looking at me. And it was good, baby. It was good, baby. Showed your name. No one could touch away me. You booked the night train for a reason. Drops on my guitar. Sit there in this bush. And I should say, jump from the train, I'm right off alone. Never grew up, it's getting so old.
Our brains like predictability. All right, so that's one of the reasons why she has become so much part of our lives. We've become Swifties. It's because we can predict what she's going to do right now, and our brains love this. All right, when it can actually have predictability. Our brains love when the music is relevant and meaning. We can make a personal connection. So let's go on and hear a little bit more on her and what she has to say about herself. And then we're going to finish up with one of my favorite songs for you to listen to, the chording and those repeated notes.
I think as a songwriter, there is that urge to connect. There is that urge to say, like, this is how I feel sometimes, and then have fans say, oh my God, like I feel that way sometimes too. And I think a documentary, if you are open enough, you can connect with people.
I tell you that you'll never find another like me.
Being in this,
And, her innocence is still there. And I think that is something that's so important. She gets passionate about what she's doing. She keeps it fresh, and you could just tell she is passionately in love with music. She also is very smart. Besides the economics you just heard, she knows how to do duets with other key people that become smash hits. All right, so let's finish up with listening to how she uses that top chord again. All right, the 1, 5, 6, 4, 1. All right, her repeated notes, but here she's doing her duet. All right, with Bon Iver. And they're going back and forth in what musicians call a question and answer. Well, once again, it's a conversation about why we broke up. So now let's just put this all together. And we're going to finish up with listening to a little bit of Exile to conclude what I have to share with you. So remember, when you're listening to Taylor, listen for those repeated notes, love them, listen for that little rise, listen for the harmony line underneath, but really delve into her words. All right, and realize that as a poet, she's getting better and better and better with every album that she's doing.
I can see you standing, honey, with his arms around your body, laughing, but the joke's not funny at all. And it took you 5 whole minutes to pack us up and leave me with it. holding all this love out here in the hall. I think I've seen this film before, and I didn't like the ending. You're not my homeland anymore, so what am I defending now? You are my town, now I'm in exile seeing you out. I think I've seen this film before.
I can see you staring, honey, like he's just your understudy, like you'd get your knuckles bloody for me. Second, third, and 100th chances, balancing on breaking bridges. Those eyes add insult to injury.
And right here's that up and down.
I think I've seen this film before, and I didn't like the ending. I'm not your problem anymore, so who am I offending now? You were my crown, now I'm in exile seeing you out. I think I've seen this film before, so
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. That was awesome. And a chance to listen to the music is always my favorite part.
Always a favorite part.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Again, if anyone has any questions for Dr. Bailey or Dr. Thomas, make sure that you put them in the Q&A, and we are going to move to our last presenter, Father Simon. Father Simon Teller serves the campus community by administering the sacraments and providing pastoral care for students, faculty, and staff. He was raised in Cincinnati, Ohio, and is the third of 7 children. Before entering the Dominican order in 2014, he studied English at the University of Dallas, worked in oil field water management in Dickinson, North Dakota, and performed and recorded folk music in Asheville, North Carolina. Father Simon was ordained a priest in May 2021 and earned his STL from the Dominican House of Studies in May of 2022. He enjoys philosophy, theology, sports, hiking, and music. So Father Simon, take it away.
Thanks, Crystal, and thanks to Dr. Bailey and Dr. Thomas. Those were amazing presentations. I am teaching a class this semester called Civ Taylor's Version. This is the syllabus, and we go through basically. I was listening. I'm not a Swiftie, but I do like some of her music, and so I was listening to the song Karma, and I realized this song is basically the first chapter of the Iliad, and I realized that there's connections between themes in Taylor Swift songs and themes that we read in Civ. So I want to talk a little bit about that using the songs Invisible String, Karma, and then maybe if we have time, I'll get into August. But okay, so basically just to dive right in, is that you take a song like Invisible String, where it's kind of a list of different things in Taylor Swift's life. So you've got, the green grass in Centennial Park. You've got the teal color of this shirt when you were 16 at the yogurt shop. And, like the blues and the purple pink sky. She's just describing things in her life. And she's seeing that there is a pattern of causality, that they all are woven together by some invisible string in an order. It's like a path, like the things that she experiences in life are arranged in some sort of path by some sort of power that's drawing her towards her soulmate. So she's like describing the experience of being in love and looking back in your experience and realizing there's so many things in my life that I can't have accounted for that drew me to you. And it's really a song about that it's how do we explain the powerful moments in our lives? How do we explain why things happen? Like, how can you explain the reason why you find someone who you love? Like, you can't, just to put it up to chance doesn't seem to fit. It's like it's too meaningful of an event just to be random. It's as if there's some invisible string, there's some force in the universe at work tying lovers together, uniting, you to me. So like that's a very interesting idea in Invisible String. And a very similar idea appears in the song Karma, where again, she's like describing different things in her life. So Karma, so her boyfriend, the breeze in her hair on the weekend, a relaxing thought, her cat and her sitting in her lap. So she's like just listing things in her life. And yet they all form a part of a pattern. It's like, why do I have these good things in my life that I love? The answer, karma. Like there's a force in the universe at work that basically ensures that what goes around comes around. So everything that she has that she loves, if she's going to answer the question, why do I have this? She can point to something that's bigger than just chance or bigger than her own decisions, but it's the power of karma, like this quasi-divine cosmic force that makes sure that like as long as she keeps her side of the street clean, then she'll have what's good. And that she knows that karma is like a bounty hunter coming down to ensure justice or revenge or punishment on those who have harmed her. So it's kind of similar to Invisible String, where you have, if you take the question of like, why has everything in my life fallen into place in the way that it has? It's because there's some sort of force at work. In Invisible String, it's the force uniting lovers. In Karma, it's the force like making sure that justice is carried out. And so this is basically the worldview of the Iliad. Like, one of the first books you read in Civ, like, that Homer wrote, that like the Iliad, a big question in the Iliad is, why is there a war happening? So if you like recall back to your time in Civ, that that the Iliad's the story of the war between the kings of Greece and the king of Troy, that there was a prince from Troy in Africa who stole a princess from Greece, Helen, and so all the kings from Greece sail in their ships across the Aegean Sea to go and wage war against Troy. And a big question is like, why are we fighting that? Why are they fighting this war? And Homer, one of Homer's points that he makes in the story is that it's not sufficient just to put it up to chance. Like this is too important of an event to happen that it can just be random. But it's also not sufficient to point to the causality of the war to human decisions. Like it's not just that the kings decided to go and fight, but there's something, this event is too big to just be something that humans orchestrate. And so like, you probably don't remember this, but the very first lines of the book of the Iliad are like, Homer is saying like, sing goddess to the muse, like the Greek muse who's like allegedly writing this story. He's like, this story is going to be about Achilles' wrath, but it's also about the will of Zeus. So basically, he's saying that there's some sort of divine causality at work, that the reason why this war is happening is because of the gods. And so the Greeks believed that there are in order to point to why things happen, they point to different gods who have different like agendas. So there's the goddess Aphrodite, who is the goddess who makes people fall in love. And so when people are falling in love, like, when love springs into the human heart, they're like, Aphrodite is at work here. Like, why is this happening? Why am I falling in love? Because Aphrodite is making this happen. Or when there's war that breaks out, or when there's like some sort of conflict that happens, they're like, why is this happening? And they point to the god Ares, the god of war. And basically, it's kind of similar to Invisible String. Like, if you take the invisible string, you could just replace that with Aphrodite, and you could take Karma, and you could replace that with Ares, the god of war. And it's the same worldview. It's like, why do these different things happen in my life? They're too big and too important to just be left up to chance. But instead, there's some sort of larger force bringing lovers together. And there's some larger force that is like making revenge and justice happen. That is the worldview of the ancient Greeks. But instead of naming them gods like Aphrodite and Ares, Taylor Swift basically names them like the invisible string of love and the force of karma. So there's like this, so she the topic of fate is a big theme for her. And it's a topic that also appears in the book of Proverbs. So the book of Proverbs, which is, from the Bible, it describes the world as like everything that happens in the world happens because all things and all events are tied together by God's wisdom, which weaves through everything that exists like some sort of divine string. So you can look up on YouTube. There's a great channel called The Bible Project, and they have a video on the book of Proverbs. And basically, they illustrate it as God's wisdom is like the invisible string from the song Invisible String, that it weaves through things of everyday life and it pulls things together in harmony. And similarly, when good people do things and get rewarded for them, or when bad people do bad things and are punished, why does this happen? It's because God's wisdom permeates reality. There's a big theme in the book of Proverbs that the just person finds peace and happiness in God's world, and the path of the wicked leads to doom, which is very similar to like what Taylor Swift is talking about with karma. It's like, that the wicked are punished and the good are rewarded. The difference is that for the book of Proverbs, the book of Proverbs takes the long view of like, you're not necessarily gonna find this justice being fulfilled in this life, but in the life to come. Similarly, like, that the good person doesn't necessarily receive the reward in this life, but is promised it in the life to come. And so this is sort of where my class came from. The idea for the class is that there are the same themes that appear in things that we read in Civ, like Proverbs or the Iliad, that also are things that Taylor Swift is writing about. And so next week or on Wednesday, our class topic is romantic love, or eros, and as like some like the Civ writers will talk about it. And just to conclude by giving a brief kind of teaser of what that class is about, that if you read the Dante, the Divine Comedy, if you remember reading the Inferno, where Dante is traveling through the different circles of hell, meeting different people, that in the 5th chapter he goes to the circle of lust, where he meets two famous lovers, Paolo and Francesca, and their punishment is that, like, the punishment always reflects the sin for Dante, and that the punishment for these two lovers who were like having an affair, that they're blown around in a circle for all eternity, and like their hands are reaching out to each other, but they can never really reach each other. It's like they're like drawn together, but they're never able to really be united. And Dante's point is that disordered love, or like, the sort of like passionate love that's not rooted in the truth, it actually doesn't have the power to unite people together. It's as if like you're constantly trying to find the person, to reach out to the person. But unless you love them in the truth, you'll always be like a fingertip away. You'll never actually make contact with who that person actually is, which really like resonates with the song August. It's a song about a summer fling, a summer affair, and there's always like the play of like infidelity happening with the love triangle with Betty and James and August. And like the whole refrain is like, that summer disappears like a bottle of wine. Like you were never mine. And it's the power of the song comes in like the recognition of like, we had a beautiful, intense summer, but we never actually found each other. Like summer slipped away like a bottle of wine. That it's like you're reaching out to find the person, but she's gone. And which is the same, and I think she's getting at the same, like this, like the love affair that is where there's some sort of infidelity happening. No, people aren't being true to each other. There's like what's going on behind your back, but it's really intense and passionate. Like in the moment, it can seem like incredible and powerful love, but in reality, like you actually miss what love is all about. Like you miss finding the other person. So I get some pushback from my students because I'm not a Swiftie, and I'll close with this. And by that I mean I have a younger sister, and she has 3 tattoos like in honor of Taylor Swift, and she can tell you, like, as many of you can, like the backstory for every single Taylor Swift song and how that is like the lens through which you're supposed to interpret it. Which is great, which is like a kind of literary criticism called the historical critical method, which is where you're like, how am I supposed to interpret this song? It's through the lens of Taylor Swift's life. And one thing I discovered is that if you take a different approach to Taylor Swift, which like in the world of literature is called the new critical method, where you just focus on the words of what she's talking about, like just focus on like the ideas that she's talking about, you're approaching the same reality, the same thing as the books that you read in Civ. That she is focused, Taylor Swift's focused about life, and like, and the reason why I find her appealing is that she has really good insights into themes like love and fate and destiny and memory and revenge and infidelity. And those are like the perennial questions that all humans want to ask. And so that's why they also appeal. That's why you can kind of unite that's why she can be a place where pop culture comes together with Civ. And so Taylor's version, it's real.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Father Simon. Thank you to all three of our fantastic contributors this evening. We do have a couple questions, and so I am going to kick it back to Sean, and then we'll let people go.
Yeah, awesome. So this is a question for all three of you, actually. Can you give examples of her persuasiveness, use of storytelling, and why you think she resonates with so many? So we see often people, like taking flights to go see her. Why do you think she resonates with so many people?
Well, I think go ahead, Father.
Just one thing that I think is that she has songs that speak to every age group. And that, so like, especially if you were born in the early 90s, that your life can be measured by Taylor Swift albums, that, like her albums, you can line up to every kind of, basically every experience for people who are under the age of 40, and beyond as well. But like my younger sister, Lucy, like she was like, I was the exact age that every Taylor Swift album when it came out. And I think that her songs can just appeal to people across like broad age groups.
Yeah, and I think for even us older people, she could take us back to that moment, all right, where we broke up with our first boyfriend, and I'm never getting back together with you. I mean, so when we listen to her music as, an older generation, you can also go back to that time and have that same exact feeling that she's relaying in her song. So she brings out memories for us. All right. And she has the ability to bring out the memory and the emotion that you felt. And that is, I think, the trigger that makes us all want to, be Swifties.
Great. Sean, did you have that second question too?
Yes, I do. So this one is a little more specific to Father Simon, but anyone feel free to answer. What sort of connections do you see between PC's Catholic and Dominican identity and Taylor Swift's music and legacy? You touched a little bit upon it before, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that it comes to the motto of PC, which is, truth, veritas, that anybody who's looking at the world and seeking the truth, has it. Like, that's what the Dominican and Catholic identity of Providence College is all about. It's like, what's true about the human experience? What's the truth about like teenage love? Our mission is so broad of like, we want to know the truth about everything, that it's hard to come up with an argument for why you wouldn't bring Taylor Swift and like the Catholic Dominican mission together. And also that as a priest, some people have there's always internet trolls out there, and there are anti-Taylor Swift. There are Christians, Catholics who are anti-Taylor Swift for various reasons. And some of them are like moral, or like, oh, she writes about, like disordered love or, immorality or that sort of thing. And that we shouldn't be, and like, I'm not saying that's true or not true, but there's no room for fear in inquiry, and that, we shouldn't be afraid of diving in to engage with any topic, as long as it's real, as long as it's not leading us away from what's truly like the human experience. That I think that one reason I like Taylor Swift is that, kind of like Dr. Thomas said, is that she's able to really express like a real memory and a real experience of human life.
And none of her songs do anything about degrading humanity in any way, shape, or form. And that's huge. Okay, that innocence that she still brings to her songs, I think, also speak very, very clearly to, the Dominican belief system. You know what I mean? So when you hear her, I kind of feel safe when you listen to her. You don't have to worry that something's going to pop up, you know what I mean, that makes you feel uncomfortable about the way she describes humanity. She's describing it the way, we want to see humanity. She describes the beauty of humanity in all of her songs, the beauty of love and the beauty of also what it feels like to break up in love. It's not ugly. Let's just put it that way. All right. So I think that's important to bring out.
We do have a couple other questions, and maybe sticking with this theme, I'll go right to this question that again was directed at Father Simon, but if anyone wants to jump in, can you give examples of some of Taylor's literary influences? Have you been able to find any of those in your research? Is she actually thinking of Homer, Dante, and the Book of Proverbs while writing her lyrics, or is that maybe connections you're making?
No, that's a great question. And because there are times when, Taylor, she's a self-professed book nerd, like she's like, what is this song where she's like, you know how to ball, I know Aristotle, like that. She does make reference like to Machiavelli and that sort of thing, but I'm not so much interested in her referencing other books, but in her looking at the world and making observations. And then you have Homer 4,000 years ago looking at the world and making a similar observation. So it's not that like she's referring to these other books, but they're both talking about the same reality, even though they might not be aware of each other. And that's sort of the beauty of art, is that artists, they don't have to be aware of each other in order to like write and create similar art or similar poetry or similar literature. Is that we're all united by the world that we live in. We all live in the same world. And so it's not, so I'm not saying that like Taylor's like sitting down is like reading the 5th chapter of Dante and then goes and writes like the song August. It's like, no, she's thinking about her experience, but so is Dante. Dante's thinking about his experience of romance and love, and they just had similar insights.
Great, thank you. We do have a question really for all panelists. First of all, this individual thanks us all for a great conversation this evening, but would like to know what is our favorite era of Taylor Swift's music. I know I'm the amateur on here, but I am a major Swiftie, and this was a really hard question in our initial meeting together. And I think maybe much like Father Simon's sister, I feel I've grown up with Taylor. So I love her old school country. I love her involvement into pop, but I'm a huge Reputation fan, so I cannot wait for that album to come out. And Dr. Bailey, you gave me hope that it's this year, so thank you for that.
I'm definitely Folklore. That's my favorite album. I can listen to it. And I bought it vinyl. I bought a record player again. I don't know what happened to my thousands of albums, but I'm starting over again. So all of my stuff that I'm buying of hers is vinyl, and everything else. I think I paid $50 for the White Album. Ouch. But Folklore is it for me.
I'll agree. That's probably my favorite. I think 1989 was when I started to realize like, oh, this isn't like just another pop artist. She's sort of like hitting some other level, but I generally like indie stuff. And so when she started going in that direction, I was happy with that.
Yeah, I've got to agree with Dr. Thomas. Folklore, I think, is my favorite album. I love the storytelling.
Mhm.
That I mean, I love folk music, and I think that one of her talents is she's able to step into these different genres, and I think she really did it really well in her own style of entering into like the tradition of American folk music being like storytelling.
My favorite. I do really love, no one asked me to begin with, but I really love Reputation, but it's almost Evermore Fall and Winter. So I'm an Evermore truther, I'm an Evermore fan. So that's my favorite. That's absolutely my favorite. I love the folk stuff. It feels a little slower. It feels a little more intentional with how it sounds. The production of it is just great. Even though no one asked me, but I just want to put in my 2 cents.
You're part of the panel too. That's why I answered. Great. The only other questions that I'm seeing, one's a comment. So, Father Simon, this individual has seen parallels from lyrics in the Reputation album to the Odyssey as well. So maybe something worth looking into. So they're helping build your syllabus and maybe next lecture as we go. And then final question, which was actually the first one to come in. But I held it off till the end because I think everyone is dying to know, not just for Father Simon's class, but how do we get into all of your courses? Because as PC alum, I can honestly say that I am so excited by what I've heard tonight. And I'll speak for all of the attendees in the essence that, again, it is so awesome to see that a traditional college like Providence College is incorporating all of these iconic moments from Taylor Swift's discography and, how she writes her music and the themes that we're seeing and how she's, impacting our economy. And again, just fascinating to me. And I'm sure your students are eating it up, even if they aren't Swifties at heart. It's just something that we can't maybe avoid or turn our heads to. And so, again, the final question was, how do we get into these courses? And I too would love to be in all of them.
Well, mine, I usually incorporate all of that in popular music when I teach it. And I don't teach it every semester because I have a heavy load, but popular music is where I cover Swiftie.
Great.
I'll be signing up to audit that.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to come audit all these.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So the class project, the homework for the Civ Taylor's version class is that the students have to divide up into pairs and host a podcast episode on a theme. And so we'll see how that goes, but you could potentially listen to that on Spotify come next semester.
Great. All right. So just one more thing. And I guess, as you mentioned, Spotify, and as we talked a lot about how Taylor, one of the things that she does to resonate with all of us is make these memories for us. I had put together a Spotify playlist as a little takeaway for all of the panelists and attendees this evening. And I believe we were going to try and share that. It does look like it went out to everyone in the chat. So if you click that link, I curated the playlist from the perspective of nostalgia. So thinking about the theme of we're all alum here, or we're, of beyond our college years. So looking back on college with fondness and how we are, again, shaped by the memories that college gave us, and Providence College as the connection for all of us in this panel tonight, and for all the attendees here tonight. So as a little parting gift for everyone who maybe can't attend the event in McPhail's that's afterwards now, I just thought that would be something that if you didn't get enough in the hour and 12 minutes that we've spent together here, you've got about 39 more minutes of one song from every era that speaks to that memory and nostalgia. So that's my my parting gift to you all. And I want to thank Sean and PC Alumni Events for coordinating this and including me on this. And again, it was awesome to work with the 3 professors here this evening. So Sean, I'll turn it back to you for the final goodbye, but thank you everyone for a wonderful evening.
Yes, everyone, thank you so much for attending this event. If you are on campus or around campus, we are hosting a post-event bash and McPhails, as bashy as Swiftie bracelet party can get. But if you are around campus or on campus, please feel free to join us in McPhails. And thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Good night.